Yeah, let's take a moment and say thank you to our sponsors at Fuji Sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've been working with us for a very long time, not only on this podcast, but also at the Academy. And I'm taking a peek at their website right now, and they have a brand new ultra light gi. Now, this is mind-blowing. I'm looking at my size. A2 is 2.75 pounds. I mean, that's under 3 pounds. That's mind-blowing.
I could even lift that. And go to their website, fujisports.com. Check it out. Anything you could need for your jiu-jitsu journey, you can find at fujisports.com.
Hey, it's been a while since we started RŌL TV project.
It's been a while since you started it. I did come in later, and I can't say enough about it, especially the new platform. It's really amazing, fully customizable, and you know a little bit more about the structure.
Well, so two things you need to know. One is the subscription service, which is $9 a month. You can get access to hundreds of videos, hundreds of drills, techniques, and so on in a very nice library categorized as you need them. But two, different lessons. You can actually purchase those individually and you own them. So the subscription is not tied to it at all. You can look at things like spider guard, half guard sweeps, half guard chokes, folding pass, and so on. There's so many of them out there. So take a look and see where you need help with the videos, right? 30%. If you type in RŌL Radio as a code.
Who doesn't like saving money? Go to rolacademy.tv. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please remember to hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. That ensures that we can continue bringing you the great guests and amazing content that you have come to expect. The RŌL Radio has had many legends as guests over the years, and today's guest is up there with the most influential jiu-jitsu practitioners of all time. As the oldest of the 5 Machado brothers, Carlos is a pioneer of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in the United States. He has been teaching in the U.S. since the late 1980s, and along with his brothers, they have been a monumental force in making Jiu Jitsu the global phenomenon it is today. Let's get right to the episode with a man whose contribution to Jiu Jitsu cannot be understated, Master Carlos Machado.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live. Good morning.
Good morning.
Normally we do these in the afternoons.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But somebody was running a little late today.
Well, listen, it's almost like jiu-jitsu, always obstacles, okay? First of all, my fault because I kind of messed up my time in my head.
I don't know why you look at it like that.
It's always about troubleshooting. It's just like jiu-jitsu. You're always trying to fix the problems you have ahead of you. You know what I mean?
Right. Who set those obstacles in your path today?
Well, truthfully, the maintenance guy who was working on my air conditioning parked the car in front of my garage. I couldn't get out. And then it was like domino effect. Everything just gets delayed.
The maintenance guy.
Anyway, I'm not making excuses here, but
so
just like jiu-jitsu, we are troubleshooting, we are figuring stuff out, we are solving problems.
Yep.
And here we are. Let's briefly talk about John.
John and Tap Cancer Out Global Grappling Day 2022. Location anywhere in the world. Registration is open. It's an online event. It's a great fundraiser. Everybody by now who listens here knows what John and Tap Cancer Out does. They have donated millions over the years to different charities. Definitely go there.
So how does this work?
Have some fun.
How does it? We sign up.
Yeah, you sign up.
We sign up online, and then we get together with our buddies.
Yep.
Whether at the academy, a home, a garage, on the street, wherever. Well, don't do it on the street. That causes trouble. But you get together with your friends, and then you train for the greater cause, contributing to to John's organization, right? So, what could be better than doing jiu-jitsu and impacting other people while we do it?
I don't know. Not much. Hey, here's a good segue.
Yeah,
let's talk to somebody who's done jiu-jitsu for a really long time and impacted a lot.
You are really excited about today, huh?
I am. Let's get to it.
Master Carlos Machado.
Thank
you, sir, for being here. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. Honored to be there. Can't wait to catch up with you guys and have a good old chat, get some good stories and talk about some let it out, let it flow.
Yeah,
let it flow.
I got to bring it up. Okay,
Go ahead.
Before we started, Thomas and I were talking, and Thomas said, and don't take this the wrong way, but he said before he got to know you a little bit better and your personality, that you always seem very angry. And I said, nothing could be further from the truth. Like everything I've always seen, you seem jovial and happy and sharing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is it just the beard and
the beard?
the
Yeah.
beard?
So this is a true story. So this goes 20 years back when I saw first picture of you, the beard. And I was like, I always thought of that like you're just upset. And then I started seeing interviews with you and videos with you, and it's like, this is the nicest guy in the world. So my apologies for that. But
no worries.
It's I heard you recently had a birthday. Happy belated birthday. Oh,
are we frozen? Uh-oh. This is not what we want to have happen today. Our connection looks good.
We are good.
Thank you. By the years, but by the friends you make. So hopefully I'm much older in this sense, in a good way, because, the more the merrier, right? But age is an idea. And I think jiu-jitsu done the right way. So I'm 59, by the way, 59. If you want to know.
Well, we are right behind you, to be honest with you. I'm 44. Gary is in his 90s.
I've made it. I've crossed into 50s. So
we feel like that sometimes, don't we, Gary?
Yes, absolutely. And I've been a little under the weather, which our listeners are probably sick of hearing about, but I haven't been training because of that. And like all those things that hurt before I started training are creeping back in. Like I've got a bad shoulder from before training, and that's really sore. Like raising my arm up hurts, and it's because I haven't been on the mat.
Is this turning into like an old guy conversation? Everything that's aching now?
It could. I don't know. We can start talking about our knees soon.
But you've been on the mat for a very, very, very long time, and many consider you a pioneer of what we do, pioneer of this art. Do you even remember like very first day where you were introduced to jiu-jitsu at all, or was it just from the beginning? It goes so far back you don't even recall that.
Yeah, I believe the first lesson I had was with late great grandmaster, my uncle Helio Gracie. My mom drove us. I was probably like in my 4 years old, maybe. And she drove us to a place that Uncle Helio used to teach downtown Rio. He was like in a building. He had some nice mats. He had a lot of private clients and small group sessions. And he was my first introduction, to jiu-jitsu, And from that point on, I started training with another great champion of the family, late Holmes Gracie. Actually Carlson Gracie. I'm sorry. I trained with Carlson Gracie, and then with Holmes Gracie. And after Holmes passed, I started training with my cousin Carlos Gracie Jr. And from there on, it was a journey. Every cousin that I got a hold of, I would ask for advice and roll with, and including my brothers. So 4 years of age, Uncle Helio was the first one that I ever had a session with.
Do you remember those days, or is it more of a story?
No, yeah, I do. When Uncle Helio, we had a bit of a self-defense showing, because he was adamant about, a very good instruction, very clear, very kind of direct and straightforward. He would make you feel very comfortable. He was very good with kids. I'm not sure how many kids he had to teach by then, but he was, with the younger ones in the family, he was always very patient, but yet, you had to pay attention to him. He would shake you off if you didn't. Carlson Gracie was a great competitive coach. He would get you ready to fight. The class is very intense. Holmes was more technique oriented, and also, he was very, very ahead of his time. I've put this way, he was one of the first Gracies to learn freestyle wrestling, boxing. He was a black belt in judo. He did boxing. He was kind of trying to diversify way before, everybody else was able to catch up. Carlos Gracie Jr. was very good at giving incentive to keep on training. In some instances, he'll tell you, you got to do your job. I'm not going to do it for you. And then having my cousins, my peers, Helion and Hanzo, and then my brothers, all the Machados, he kept us honest because if we slacked at any given point, we knew we would have to pay for it when we showed up on the mat again against one of them. So I would go train, not just so much because I wanted to in some instances, but I was worried that if I didn't, my brother or my cousin would be there. And then by the time I saw them next, I would be, maybe not as comfortable, So we all see a good way to explain sibling rivalry. All right, you can miss out training, but your brother's going to make you pay next time you show up. So, but in regards to training, I felt in the beginning a bit of pressure. I remember when I was a yellow belt, there was another kid. I eventually became the top kid in the class. And there was another kid. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years later. I still remember his name, Antonio, like Anthony, Carlos. And that kid was amazingly talented. And we had bouts left and right. And I remember I would go train, but I was always anxious when I saw him because I didn't have the mentorship. When you're a kid, sometimes you become somewhat with an idea that you have to perform to get the approval of your parents, get the approval of your instructor, and you feel they're getting better. You can't let anybody down. There's some insecurities that's normal. We didn't have back then the mentorship that builds you up also on a psychological aspect. Today, I see tapping as an incentive, not as something bad. So going back to, and I remember it was pressing. I remember going to the academy to train, and the classes were intense. And I was a kid back then, Gary. Remember that it's like, man, it's like a tournament. I felt adrenaline, butterflies. Eventually, we passed that stage. But still, when I was a blue belt, I became an assistant junior assistant instructor to my cousin, Carlos Gracie Jr. And being an assistant, being cousin to your instructor, it always gives you a degree of pressure because when there's a question about a technique or if somebody needs to be tested, you have to be put up front. You're on the front line. So we always had to. So it was a necessary, I guess, stage to build us up. But there was a lot of pressure. I didn't enjoy competition back in the old days when I was younger. I enjoyed more at a later time, actually, after I moved to the United States, when I did just because I wanted to do it, not because I wanted to, impress anybody or because somebody told me so, so that's kind of like interesting aspect. But in regards to the bond that it created amongst my family, it's unbelievable. You being together on the mat, you spend probably more time with people in an academy if you train consistently than with anybody else anywhere. So in jiu-jitsu, we lived and breathed jiu-jitsu. Anywhere we went, we had mats. My brothers and I were watching a movie, and all of a sudden we had an idea about a technique. We had mats in every house we lived, but sometimes we would move the coffee table and start going at it to brainstorm and figure things out.
Do you think that pressure that you talk about made you stronger, or it really put you in a situation where you just didn't have a choice? I guess I'm trying to figure out, was that pressure a good thing in your life, or not so good thing?
But no, okay, so I think you have two ways to answer this. Okay, when I say pressure, okay, it's not a disciplinary thing that, okay, you got to do it because I tell you so, because you have to, otherwise you're going to be ashamed to the family or this and that. Not necessarily so. Some people interpret that way. The pressure is, it's easy nowadays for people to just quit and do other things at the first sign of difficulty. Back then we didn't have the luxury, and we had our letdown moments. I remember one time we had an invitational tournament between our academy, which was Carlos Gracie Jr. With Gracie Barra. At that time, I think might have been, I'm not even sure if Gracie Barra was back then already alive, but we competed together with Rickson Gracie's academy, the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Umaita. And we went against Carlos Gracie. We had, I think, 7 or 8 competitors from each side going like a duel, by weight division and stuff. And I remember, my brother Hagan won one match, my other cousins won and stuff. When it came my time, I got this otder guy who's super nice guy. He eventually became an instructor. at Carlson Gracie Academy. His last name was Buchau, and he was bigger than me, and I guess he won by points, he outscored me. And I was like, I saw everybody, winning, and I was there losing. I felt like the black sheep, and I didn't have any consolation. I was like, man, I'm ashamed of myself that everybody's winning and I'm not. Interestingly enough, I had a match against the same guy in the black belt when I went to the Masters in 2000, and I was able to redeem myself and win him convincingly. But it took me literally 20 years to get to meet him again. And I couldn't believe, I didn't even know he was determined until I was advancing at the brackets. I had 7 matches in a span of 3 hours. So I was, every 30 minutes I had a match. And he was, I think, match number 4 or number 5. But I remember, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I almost like I had a flashback. Oh man, you cannot drop the ball now. But going back to the pressure part, I think as an instructor, you have to teach the psychological aspect of jiu-jitsu, okay? There's no losing when you're learning. Carlos Gracie, great late Grandmaster Carlos Gracie, my uncle always said, man, when you worry about losing, you're already losing before you start. Go worry about learning and do your best. If the guy's better than you, then kudos to him, And I think that's the challenge that a lot of people have to conceptualize. There's no shame in loss when you did all you could to win. Okay. The problem is when you feel you haven't done enough and you ended up not having a good result, and then you want to go back and say, man, I could have done this, could have done that. When you walk out of a situation where you said, man, I did all I could, and if I did it and I didn't make it, I know that I have to keep on working, so life would teach you, the hard knocks. So we didn't have, I guess, jiu-jitsu was still incipient back then. Some of our cousins were still as young, back then, very young. And so for all of us, it was a growth period of some sorts, that some things we were given the instruction on how to proceed. Some others we had to learn on the go. And life teaches you a much harder lesson, by the way.
Yeah.
So when I say pressure, yeah, go ahead.
I was about to ask about that pressure, because today, you are right. A lot of students face that reality of jiu-jitsu is complex. There is layers of, different levels, and it's hard to do it. It's really hard to do, especially long term. And many, unfortunately, do give up way too soon, and that pressure is kind of working against them. What is your thoughts on teaching students to allow themselves to be in these vulnerable positions and explore these points of vulnerability, especially when it comes from physical pressure? But not only that, mentally too. We need to be tough to do jiu-jitsu. We got to keep coming back, right?
Sure. All right. So you touched on some points. Let's go to the bottom of it first. Okay. So it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Okay. So a lot of times as an instructor, you teach somebody how to do a technique, but you don't emphasize how to train. Okay. And for you to be effective training, there are thresholds. Okay. When you don't know anything, you're always a bit lost. Okay. So the best thing for me is give the students direction. You're in this situation here. Somebody's on top of you. They're trying to drown you. Don't worry about doing any technique. Worry about protecting your breathing. Okay. How do you protect your breathing? Because if you're breathing, you're alive. So one of the first things I do, and people, you guys mentioned pressure, right? I teach people how to deal with pressure even before they know how to apply it. Because anybody can put pressure on anybody, but not anybody can deal with pressure. When pressure is put upon you. There's a term, jiu-jitsu claustrophobia. Okay, guys, they panic a little bit when they have situations they have a hard time breathing. You go against a judo guy that has a good keza, he'll tap you out just with pressure. Have a good wrestling that holds you in the wrestler that holds you in the cradle position. You're gonna kind of quit because you feel you can breathe, right? So there are very approachable, tangible ways in which you can avert pressure, even if you don't do anything. And for instance, hip rotation and keep one shoulder slightly off the mat at any given time when people are trying to put pressure on you. will deflect the pressure on your lungs and diaphragm. Okay. And there's something else that I do too. You know, your fingertips, the distance between life and death is on the last knuckle of your finger, between the tip and the first knuckle. Okay. Because if you latch on a wrist, on a shoulder, you know, you guys, for instance, on the side control, you guys remember when the UFC had some of the guys doing the flow choke?
Mm-hmm.
I call that the fluke choke. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it seems like a fluke because people don't see it. But then Ryan Hall teaching a seminar, if you guys remember, there was a viral YouTube, that a female blue belt was in the half guard with him and put pressure on him. All of a sudden, he passed out.
Oh, yeah.
I remember
show that
right?
here sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
That's Heather, yeah.
Okay, so I had some law enforcement class that I taught to a female officer that was probably like 115 pounds, and I had a guy who was a good 250 on top of her. And I told the guy, put your shoulder on her neck and tripod your body on her. Put all your weight on your shoulder. And all the officer, the female, was doing was fingertip the shoulder and the elbow, you know, and connect, you know, to her chest and rotate her hips slightly and her face away from the guy. And the guy was putting the entire weight on the poor officer. And she was like looking at me like nothing was happening. Okay. This is very powerful. This is very powerful because I've done this experiment before several times where I put somebody tiny against a giant. And I tell the guy, this guy's going to try to make you stop breathing. And all you care about is keep on breathing. And when they get out of that experience, realize that they can still breathe regardless of the pressure that was placed upon them, it's one of those moments that they won't forget. Okay. And then you build up from that point on. Okay. So what's the problem with jiu-jitsu? It's not the tapping. People don't have a problem tapping because you tap and you start over again, unless they tap each other out and hurt each other, which I always say you finish in my academy. We play fight. You do a submission, but you finish always slow. You don't finish fast. You don't yank an arm. I seldom have anybody getting any joints popped because they control. Okay. Of course, in tournaments, you can go extra to make sure that the guy taps, but still keeping in mind that control is everything in submission. But going back to the part I was talking about, I kind of got lost here. I was talking about dealing with pressure, and then people worry about getting tapped. Mm-hmm. The thing that frustrates people the most is getting stuck and not being able to get unstuck.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody who's going to quit, that's one of the things that, besides not being able to deal with pressure, they feel claustrophobic, they train and they get stuck. Okay. So how do you unstuck yourself? You cannot unravel something in a second, but you can backtrack the steps preceding it. It's always on the reverse engineering that you're going to find all the solution up to the point where the person is going to deal with the situation then. For instance, what happens when somebody holds you down in a pin on the side control? Well, if they take you down and then start there, or they pass your guard and they end up there, you know, so you're going to have different situations. They reverse you and then they end up there. So you're going to have to backtrack the different situations. So jiu-jitsu is, imagine many doors, okay? I cannot shut all the doors. And I tell the guys, okay, so you're going against that guy, he has 5 doors. He does 5 things that he can get in and you cannot get out, right? So make sure you shut one door. And once you shut that door, you go ahead and play the next one. And that's how you prepare to deal with somebody's game. Even the person who has a better game. All right, I cannot stop this guy. How can I delay? So you think in terms of strategy, how can I make him work longer and harder? Okay. My goal for white belts is to make sure that if they're a novice, that they can make the other training partners work longer and harder in order to get them anywhere. Okay. And if they feel they get stuck anywhere, that they can still deal with the pressure without quitting or feeling, you know, overwhelmed. Okay. So once you get those 2 out of the way, it gives you a bit of a mental edge. Because, you know, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? This guy ends up on top and tries to get the wind out of my lungs, try to kill me, okay, so to speak. Okay, so I'm still alive, regardless of any of the things that he may try to do. So that's not as bad, you know? I can still come back for another day. Now, when you start working with threshold, All right. You have the before, the during, and the after. Any situation, you have those three elements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So people, they don't have an after and they cannot deal with it during. They focus only on the before. Well, I'm doing great and everything until the guy holds me down. And then they kind of, in some instances, they freeze, especially if you're going for a match that you feel getting tired. There's also another thing. If you talk to Rickson, his yoga teacher, great master, Orlando Cani, he taught Rickson the breathing, some breathing exercises that Rickson took to the letter and used to his training. And Rickson has said in many instances, 40% of his jiu-jitsu, that's a big statement right there. He said, 40% of my jiu-jitsu is my breathing. You know what I'm saying? Because once you know how to breathe, I don't have all the patterns that Rickson does, but I have my own. And I can tell that you can last twice as long and be way more relaxed, regardless how bad the match might be going against you. Okay? So we can revisit that in a bit. But going back to, not trying to sidetrack on how do you instruct the students. I'll give an example here. Last night, I was, I do the curriculum. I see the monthly lesson plan. Okay, I like to create a flow. I do like a flow with no resistance, where people have a general overview of the things they have to do. Okay, great. Okay, so now we're going to try to give you tactical training. I'm going to pick two aspects. Let's say guard pass and side control. And when you get the side control, you have to end up on the mount. That's the transition that you're going to go for.
Mm-hmm.
So we work and troubleshoot the mechanics, how to make the mount better, how to create the angles. And okay, so now you're going to keep the mount, and the guy's going to do his best to get out of the mount as you get there. So, we start to create a little bit of a challenge in one aspect of the whole thing. And then later, okay, now we're going to do guard retention. Whoever is the guy defending, you got to make that guy work a little harder in order to get out of your guard. And that's the other thing that people miss out. They get too worried about submissions or fancy sweeps and stuff. Man, do an exercise, just see how long you can keep somebody from passing, if that's all you do. And now you're dealing with pressure, somebody gets on your side, you're in a position that you feel comfortable in a bad spot, okay? And then go from there, okay? But what I realized in the class was people are having a hard time breaking the guard. It was a class that, the guys were giving each other some challenge. So usually on the day after the session of the week, okay, so these are some of the things that we have to emphasize. You guys are flowing in most situations, but you're getting stuck on this particular one. So I will spend a little bit more time, like for instance, tonight when I teach, we're going to work more on just getting stuck on the closed guard. We're going to emphasize a few of those strategies. And then from there, we go to the half guard, which I saw some people having issues too. And that way you kind of create the puzzle. Okay, so you have your structure, you follow a curriculum, but then you have to feel the needs of the class. What is the one element I can add without deviating from the structure, just to give them more possibility to flow, not to be stuck, okay? So that for me has been a great formula, because the students realize there's a way. There's a way. And then that translates, man, I can do this. The greatest feeling that you see in a student is when they have that spark in the eyes, reflecting, I can do this. I can do this. They have that eureka moment. I can do that too. That's what I saw in that female officer. Her smile was bigger than the state of Texas. By the time she realized, I can hold this 250-pounder, try to crush my face, and I can still look at the instructor smiling, like nothing's, I'm feeling okay here. It's powerful. So that's the other thing that I want to bring up is jiu-jitsu is the art of details. Okay, it's not the big things that you're gonna see that's gonna make the difference, that's gonna make people competent or capable. It's the small stuff. When Rickson Gracie talks about invisible jiu-jitsu, it's something as simple as getting his heels off the ground. Somebody was touching him on a self-defense move. His heels were immediately slightly off the ground because he predisposes his base to be a little stronger since his weight was projecting forward. When you saw the people doing, the guy was trying to do just a basic choke, and the guys were being pushed back a little bit. in the time it happened. Okay, so I could, we could, extrapolate on some of the other things. Man, I'm going crazy here. Sorry for the
No,
it's
listen,
good
we
stuff.
are quiet because
It's
it's
good.
nothing but wisdom. But I think what's interesting listening to you is that there's a lot of intelligence behind everything that you talk about. And what I mean by that, we have to make decisions. We have to think. We have to be aware of what is around us and how we react to it. Yet, that is super difficult when somebody's putting pressure at us, when we are in the survival mode. You talked about, I'm drowning and all I need is air. Nothing else really matters. And making these very simple decisions to be aware what's happening around us and make intelligent decisions versus
Panicking,
right? Like, how many times there is somebody on the side of you, on top of you, and students are just, they're just pushing, because the awareness of the situation is not there.
Yeah.
That's the hard part about jiu-jitsu, being smart about it.
Yeah, I always, when we have prospects here, brand new students, the biggest advice, touching on what you said earlier, the best advice I ever got was, you've been here before, breathe. And but that's easier said than done. But when you figure out where to put yourself so you can breathe, it maybe going back to doors, that analogy, it starts opening up all these other possibilities, because now I'm safe. Now I can breathe. Now I can think, and I can start moving myself into better positions, where when you can't breathe, that's your number one concern. And if you don't do it logically, then you start flailing, spazzing, all that stuff. And then you're in deeper water than you were 10 seconds ago.
Yeah. Somebody told me this. I don't know who it was, but it was a while back. It's the situation was somebody was in a top mount position and the other person was in the bottom. The bottom person is panicking, and the instructor goes, Why are you panicking? Is he hitting you? No. Is he choking you? No. So what's happening? He's on top of me. So create your frames off balance and begin thinking about what is going to happen. Why is it so hard for us to think logically when we are in these positions?
So let me kind of elaborate on something else here that I've been coming across. How can you do more with less?
Yes.
How can you accomplish the instruction in a way that you don't say much and the students get more out of it? Okay. You got to use two things. One, strategy, teach them about strategy. And secondly, figure of speech. For instance, keep your friends close. Keep your enemies closer. If somebody's on you and he wants to smash you, don't push him. Pull him even closer to you. And when he tries to detach from you to create space to attack you, he's the one that has to make the effort. And then he gives you the opportunity to push. So I always tell my students, pull before you push. Anytime you want to push somebody who's trying to pass your guard and smash you, if you push him, it's bench press. So you're going to do two things. You pull him and wiggle your head in the process. A lot of times talk about hip shrink. You got to be like a fish. What's the trick on the mat? You got to swim on a mat surface. Hickson always said, and I said that before, the mat is an ocean. I'm a shark, and, and you are in the water and you don't know how to swim. It's kind of like that, okay? So what's the first thing you got to do with anybody? You just teach them how to swim on a flat surface. The hip shrimp, it's kind of like an excuse for me to keep the mats clean. Okay, I just put everybody on. I'm saying, you got to go there and rub your back, and it dusts off the mat, okay? I teach them how to move I do the hip shrimp is secondary. The head movement and shoulder shrimp is the primary, because you want to go up. You don't want to go out alone, okay? And the other thing, too, is I teach them to push off a wall. Stay against the wall. Try to push the wall. The wall is not moving. You got to push yourself away from the wall. Treat your opponent the same way as a wall. When the guy gets on you, you're not pushing him. You're pushing yourself away from him, okay? Then you talk about, if you want to extrapolate, the hierarchy of the joints, okay? You have a guy open up his arms like a scarecrow, and you count the joints. Don't include the fingers because it's illegal for now to use the fingers, but let's say get a wrist, elbow, shoulder on either side, and then you have ankle, knees, and hip, and then you have the head. The head is the crown. Okay, if you get a neck, it's done. It's over. It's a knockout. Okay, the guy passes out. Okay, you hit the guy in the chin in a boxing match, that's the end of it. Okay, so the higher the joint, the higher the value. The wrist, you do a wrist lock, you can impair somebody if you break the wrist, but they can still be quite functional. You break the elbow, he's less functional. You break the shoulder, he really have a hard time keeping his posture, you know? And of course, when you go to the neck is king. So when you work with figure speech, and I say 2-on-1, you get 2 against 1 joint. No matter what you do, the guy gets around you, 2 hands against the wrist. And when I say that, I know it seems like somewhat simple, you know, that it may not mean that much. But if you can take out one arm of your opponent when he tries to get to your side, he cannot. I mean, there are submissions that you can use a single arm, like the one-arm guillotine. But for the most part, for you to set up, you need the 2 limbs. You know what I'm saying? And those things right there, they get it right away. So you cut to the chase. You don't have to. When I look at a class, if it takes more than 3 steps for you to do a technique, I think it's too much. If it takes 6 steps, divide the technique in 2. Teach the first 3, let them get used to it, and then teach the other 3 afterwards. Because you don't want to mess up the muscle memory. You're not talking to the guy's brain. Jiu-jitsu is not academic, or you know, that you see on the chalkboard, the teacher writing down something that you have to memorize for the test. It's about nervous system acquisition. You know, your reflexes don't start from your brain. They start from the surface of your body. You know what I'm saying? We're like blind men when you don't know jiu-jitsu. You know what I'm saying? Sure. We don't see it. We just feel it. Okay? So it starts from the surface to the brain, but then it has to reconnect from the brain to the surface. And the only way that can happen is when there is intensity. All right? That's why a lot of students, when they do drills with no resistance and they go train, they can't execute the damn thing when they go spar because the nervous system is not built up yet. They only have half of the problem. So I've had situations, because I work on accelerated learning. How can I make these guys learn fast? And I had some experience I made. Okay, and I remember, I taught a technique on a Friday to this guy in the seminar. The guy had a tournament on Saturday, and he was able to use the technique. I said, well, he was able to put it off. Then I had another event. It was actually in Mexico. We had a seminar in the morning and then a tournament in the afternoon. And I was teaching these guys a bit of guard retention and the cross X choke from the guard and from the mouth, do a sweep. And that guy won the tournament. He used that maybe on 3 different occasions. That same move that he learned that same day that he didn't know back then. Okay? So that told me about something. Then a few years later, I was in Vegas on a trade show, and there was, I guess it was Grappler's Quest. Remember the tournament that they used to have?
Yeah.
Brian Simmons used to run it. And so there was a tournament going on at the same time I was teaching. And I was in a booth, kind of like an amusement park, and you go to a booth, and the guy promises you some magic and stuff, you know, a trick on you and stuff. So basically, my magic was, I have 5 minutes to teach you how to nail down a move. You can only spend 5 minutes with me, right? And you have the choice what you want to get better at. You know, it was a little game that I played. So basically here, what I did, I had this guy. This guy was actually competing. So he was about to go compete, but he dropped by. And he wanted to know about the butterfly guard, which is my bread and butter. I love butterfly guard. So I said, so this is what you're going to do, okay? I'm going to go from 1 to 2, okay? You're going to get the hooks in, not let him get past. 1, 2. Okay, now shake a little bit. You have to shake the guy. Whenever you want to accelerate, shake, because that's what awakens the nervous system. You know how a lot of times when you have, back in old Japan, the guys that had the cane, either to correct and discipline the students, or sometimes if you put your body in the wrong position, he would kind of hit you a little bit here and there for you to figure out what part of your body was misplaced. Okay, so I would do that with my hands. I would kind of, if his leg was not placed the proper way, I'll keep slapping gently and repeatedly like I was shock waving his leg. So his mind started to read that a little faster, right? So, okay, now this is what you're going to do, okay? You have 2 ways to do it. Underhook and over the arm, or you can go head and arm. Okay, let's say that was the example. And when you're on the arm, you just grab the hip, or you try to grab high on the shoulder blade. Okay, you do like an underhook. Make sure you punch your elbow out and punch your other elbow in, and you push your hand against his head. So I started to do, and it took me 2 minutes. In the last 3, I said, take me down. and I was resisting, and the guy was almost getting it. Then I would kind of slap him on the area that he needed to pay attention to. By the end of the day, by the end of the 5 minutes, he was doing it. Okay, good, great. Then I don't hear about the guy anymore. So I go there, teaching stuff. Then I see that guy going back with a silver medal, coming back. And the guy came to me and said, I pulled that off in 3 out of the 4 matches that I had. And the other one, the guy stalled. He took me down. I guess he saw what I did, and he was kind of not trying to pass. And he had a takedown, so he just held me down, and this and that. But man, so I said, what? So that for me was an awakening. You know what I'm saying? You have to say less and show more. Same thing with kids. My gosh, I see instructors teaching kids, and you want to explain to the kids something? Don't explain to kids anything, okay? Just say, hey, guys, we're going to now see who's the king of the hill, who's going to climb the highest mountain. You just throw something like that. So this is the mountain. The guy crosses the leg in the guard, and this is how you climb the mountain. You have to break the guard and walk away, okay? So now the kids are, they think they are climbing a mountain every time they open the guard. So they have a motivation. And guess what? Before they switch, because kids, they don't have attention span, you have to keep the endorphins on, okay? I always tell the parents, you're going to thank me before this class is over because they're going to ask for a nap if it's afternoon, or they're going to go to bed early if it's evening time, okay? I make them do 10 to 15 jumping jacks before every time they switch, and I never let one of the kids do a bunch of reps because that makes it boring to the other guy. You do one, 15 jumping jacks, now you do one, and then keep going like that. And then we had the second technique, and guess what? Jiu-Jitsu snowball. That's another methodology right there. Snowball. You don't do technique 1, then you do technique 2, and then when you finish technique 2, you go for number 3. No, you go technique 1, technique 2. Okay, now do 1 and 2 together. Great. Now, okay, you can do 1, you can do 2, and you can do 1 and 2 together. Okay, now we add technique 3. And then, okay, you got 3. 3 is the magic number, okay? Have you guys been in Central Park, New York? Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you ever seen that guy that has the cup, the fur ball in the middle? No. Or under the cup? That he kind of hides the cup.
Oh,
He moves the cup.
Yeah.
All right, so I call that the Central Park style, okay? Whenever you have 3 techniques, like the 3 cups and the ball. So you got to make that magic so your opponent doesn't know which direction you're going, okay? I give you an example here. I have 3 moves, right? I have a sweep, a choke, and an armbar, okay? From the guard. I go for the sweep, great. Then I go for the choke, great. Then I go for the armbar, great. Now I go sweep to choke, great. Now I have to go choke to sweep. I got to start changing the order. So what you do, okay, I'm going to go now from armbar to sweep. Or I'm going to go from sweep to armbar and then choke. So you know how to do things in a progression, an orderly fashion. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Mm-hmm. Then you can reverse 3, 2, 1. Then you can jump 1, 3, 2. How many techniques actually you can perform out of 3? Because you changed the sequence. You see what I'm saying? And that's what I call the magic. You know what I'm saying? Combination of techniques increases dramatically your approach. My brother Jean-Jacques, he's not a first attempt submission specialist. He's a second attempt submission specialist. He goes for an armbar knowing he's going to miss. But when you escape, he gets you on the second one for sure. So the second attempt is stronger and it's quicker and it gives you less time to react against. See what I'm saying? So we can go and extrapolate all those, but I don't even know where this question started.
Me neither. I'm so fascinated. I'm so fascinated with everything that you're saying. But listen, you mentioned your brothers multiple times throughout this conversation. As time goes on, I do want to talk about your family. You guys are you guys are visibly very tight, and your association not only is this growing drastically, but also it appears as there is this irreplaceable bond between you as brothers and obviously your students and black belts and everybody else. And I think what's unique about this is that many in jiu-jitsu actually go in the opposite direction. They separate. Everybody wants to do their own thing. I want to have my own academy. I want to create my own thing. Versus you guys are going completely opposite. You're actually building something that not many are able to accomplish. What is your secret?
All right, so there are 2 aspects here. I was thinking about this when you kind of mentioned in the beginning. Have you read Outliers from Malcolm Gladwell?
Absolutely, one of the best books.
Yeah. So there's a passage in which it says anything that grows too big or grows too large is doomed eventually to break up.
Mhm.
Okay. And his magic number was 150. When he talked about villages, the old tribes and stuff,
Yep.
up to 150, the communication flow, you can always talk to the chief of the tribe. There's not that much gatekeeping.
Yep.
Things go back and forth. But when you go above and beyond that number, you start to fall apart a little bit because the communication. So the thing with the brothers is this, okay? We all believe in this. We all believe in this. We have to believe in humility, okay? Despite the fact we're not the same in regards to how we proceed. Each of us has our own unique way of doing things, okay? Before we came to America, okay, my late uncle, Carlos Grace, these were the last words that I heard from him while he was alive. He said, you have nothing to prove. Be humble. Okay? So when my brothers and I started our schools, the first thing that was written on every academy, every Machado academy, was leave your ego at the door. Okay? That was the first thing. Our first article ever on a newspaper with Chuck Norris was written, Ambassadors of the Gentle Art. The first published magazine that we had, I'm trying to remember the name. It was not Inside Kung Fu. It was a different. We had like a full stretch, all the five brothers on a cliff on a beach in the Palos Verdes area in South Bay, and basically that was the number. That was the first articles that we did. Leave your ego at the door. So we're always there to share, and learn. All right. And we still have that approach. When I go, I remember when Keanu Reeves was doing a clip with us before he did, not the first John Wick, I think it was the second one. Maybe it was the first one. I could be wrong. We were in LA. Higgin invited us over. Higgins is a celeb guy. You want to know any famous actor? Hang out with Higgin for a day in Hollywood. You're going to see quite a few of them. But the bottom line was we were there while we were waiting. John was talking about some topics, and Jean-Jacques was talking. And then me and Jean-Jacques started to practice the techniques right then, as we used to do when we had to remove the coffee table back in the old days in Brazil. And all of a sudden, we're starting to go at each other, getting sweaty. And we couldn't get sweaty because we had the makeup and we had to look nice in the camera and so on. So we have the love for the art. Okay. I don't think any of us teach jiu-jitsu without loving it. Of course, you have other, goals in life. Higgin has a lot of projects with movies and stuff, but we do love. If any Machado is on the mat, they don't want to be anywhere else. For me, that's how I feel it. And so having that commonality in regards to our passion make us closer, regardless of any differences. Okay. Now, I'm the oldest. And I feel somewhat, and in a way, it's good, and it has been detrimental in some instances. I felt like I was to replace my dad as the father figure for my brothers, and I don't think, this is the right approach. They're all grown ups. We all learn from our own experiences. So it took me a while to kind of get out of that role and realize that the best way for us to be united is we have to develop individually, and we used to have, I guess we tried to do an association together. We do cooperative efforts. We do training camps with all the brothers and stuff, but each of us needed to have our own space, because in the end, although our mission started the same and maybe similar in many ways, each of us has a unique set of skills and mission, that may be slightly different than the other. And we can't be in the middle of each other, holding each other back. So we are together when we need to be, and we're always supportive of one another if need to be. And like I said, we try to leave politics aside. You know what I'm saying? Because what cripples families is when you start to get into politics. Okay, if you did something that I don't agree with, I'm going to tell you. I'm not trying to sugarcoat you, and vice versa. Nobody is immune to criticism, because it comes from a position of love. Though you're not to criticize somebody to put him down. You're trying to criticize him to build him up. You can do better than this, man. Come on, you can do better than that. It's not like saying you fail. So So I think it's just kind of like I think whenever I spend time with either of my brothers, I don't feel any distance, any separation. There's a sense, you've been with that person for quite a time in your upbringing. And although you don't see each other all the time, there's that sense that we're never apart. I can explain to you, so, and I feel like whenever I go to any of my brother's gyms and vice versa, the students, when they visit each other, they feel we're in the same place. It's like a family feel, so, I think that has to do with our philosophy more than anything.
Well, it sounds to me like giving each other freedom helped a lot, where you weren't restricting anybody. It was like, you can do your own thing because we have a commonality. Yeah. And in families, I feel like sometimes I can even speak within my own family dynamic. It's like, I'm the diplomatic one. And I think it's because I see that there's something bigger than whatever this squabble is about. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't, we can get over this. Why let this ruin, now 60 years of family, and so I try to approach it that way.
Yeah. I've always tried to be the diplomatic. I think you got to keep your cool when you have differences, but you can't be nice all the time and not say things when they have to be said. And I'm at fault of doing that in many instances. And I try to correct that of myself, because being nice doesn't mean that you're not going to confront a situation or address a situation. And a lot of times life puts you in a position, and I always remember, it's not what's easy, it's what's right that you have to base your decision upon. You know what I'm saying? And if it's going to hurt somebody's feelings or it's going to cause some, stir up, so be it. It's positive to have conflict on occasion when, things need to be shaken up, not in the sense of destroying things or relationship, but I think growth requires of you to go through hurdles. Because otherwise, if everything is good, I agree with you, you agree with me, even when I disagree with you, I don't want to seem like I'm disagreeable. No, that's not right. If you have an opinion on this podcast that I'm not at the same page, I'm going to just maybe not say anything. Or if I see the reason to, I say, hey, yeah, but I think, you could look at this way too. I'll just throw my 50 cents on it, and I feel this is important, so.
But that's leadership 101, right? It's allowing people to have their freedom, allow them to explore what they need, but at the same time be candid, being honest, and really give them the feedback that they need so they can continue growing. We can't get better if we don't adjust and we don't adapt to the situations we are in. You talk about your brothers way back in the day when you guys are younger. I assume there was a lot of sparring sessions and probably a little rivalry between all of you guys. Who's kicking whose butt back then?
So let's put it this way: you go to a bout. Let's say you go to a boxing match. The guy beats you, in the 10th round. He probably beat you in more rounds than one. He won, but he's beat the crap out too. You know what I'm saying? So it was never an easy walk in the park. Doesn't matter. Once all the brothers grew mature, it was a worthy fight. The other thing that was curious was, when I train my students, I'm kind of like more lenient, more compassionate. I try not to go so hard. I try to kind of give them a little bit of leeway. With my brothers, I couldn't do that luxury. I had to go, steady and fully aware, because I know any slip, any mistake, they will take full advantage of it, So, but like I said, I don't think we had the rivalry of if somebody tapped somebody, it was a bad deal. I never felt that. We just, we went at each other. Had good training. Each brother has kind of like I was like the X-Men Academy. Each one has some secret power. He was like a mixture of a bear and an anaconda. There's always the bigger one. So, and he's known for putting pressure. So I remember, if I can just train with Higan and be breathing by the end of the class or the end of the session, that for me is a win, and then the more I did it, the better I felt at it. I said, you know what? He's breathing hard too. So so I would capitalize. I always had like the gas tank to go for the longest rounds. And so I never thought too much what was happening in the beginning. I was more concerned about, let's see who's going to cross the finish line, you know. And but the thing with Jean-Jacques, for instance, Jean-Jacques never stops. You know, if you train with him, he wants you to say, okay, we had enough. It's kind of like, even when he rolled with Rickson Gracie, you know, they'll go for long rounds, and okay, he gonna say, that's good, Jean-Jacques, we had enough. You know, just kind of like, I'm not sure if it was a pride thing or the way he did it. If he felt like, if I say I stop now, maybe, you know, I don't want to be me, let be him. You know, it's kind of like some curiosities.
What about
in a good
you?
way, you know?
What about you? What's your secret magic power?
Me, I'm slow and steady, and I put pressure in every position I can. You know, I don't worry if you're on top, if I'm on top. If you're on top, I want to make you work hard. And when I'm on top, I don't take my time. I take my sweet time, keeping pressure on you. Because what I noticed in jiu-jitsu, there's a breaking point mentally when the guy feels that no matter how much he's trying, the position is not improving for them. It's getting gradually worse. Okay, and that can cause, you know, you can get things done much easier when you use that approach. And if you see top grapplers today, the ones that are most effective, pressure is a major tool in their arsenal. You know, so
if you look at jiu-jitsu today and 20, 30, 40 years ago, what is the one biggest difference that you see?
More people doing it, a bigger pool of talent, people with more skills in different areas that jiu-jitsu lacked, like wrestlers that are good in jiu-jitsu, you know, strikers who are good in jiu-jitsu, and also the whole science of, you know, conditioning, recovery, you know, supplementation, all those things that we took for granted or we're not aware of or didn't pay attention to back in the old days, you know. So I feel I take much better care of my body and my health now than I did back then. I was always into a healthy lifestyle, but man, you learn a lot, you know, and you got access to the hacks. Also, today you can study anybody. You know, you have the technology with the online platforms, but you got to be careful because you don't want to become a jiu-jitsu Frankenstein. You know, like a lot of times we all have a jiu-jitsu DNA. You know, you have body type. When I look at a guy, by his body type, I can tell what game would fit better. Guys with long legs, you know, needless to say, triangle man. You know, guys who have short legs, then needless to say, the guy's going to be an X guard or a butterfly expert. You know what I'm saying? So you have all those little things and nuances that you see just by the physicality or the structure of the body. But in regards to learning, what I feel is you can always refresh and renew your jiu-jitsu approach, but I do like this approach. The man in the mirror is the measure. How can I beat that guy? Because you start with yourself. So if you're the same all the time, you know, so you have to have a full idea what your game is, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And then when you train, you conduct your training not to beat your opponent or your training partner, because some guys have more or less skills than you, but to always beat the guy in the mirror. You know, there are guys that say they do a training camp and they said, man, that guy on the first day of training camp and the guy here now who finished the training camp, this guy here can beat that guy in no time. See what I'm saying? And so growth, it's a introspective approach because you get caught up with the noise. What's the latest trend? Oh, I'm gonna do this leg game right now. Oh, I'm gonna do this homoplata game, the X guard game. No, man, gotta be honest. Who's the person in the mirror? You know, and you keep that. It's literally a compass. You know, you always take to the right direction. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes we get lost in the middle of it, and you learn too many things that may not be as relevant to you. You are not yet fully settled with a particular aspect of your game, and you keep jumping here and there, going everywhere. You're going to be a master, a jack of many trades and a master of none.
Yeah, phenomenal advice. Well, as we kind of getting to the 1 hour mark, you know, what we do at every episode here on RŌL Radio is we do have a question from a previous guest, but she had no idea who will be answering this.
man.
Yeah.
She had no
man.
clue. We do this to everybody.
Oh,
We
man.
put you guys on the spot, but
Yep.
it does create a very interesting end
Oh, man.
of the conversation. So Heather Woods was here with us recently on the previous episode. Gary's going to take a lead on that.
Yeah. So Heather's question is, what are you going to do to impact equality in women's jiu-jitsu? Very specific.
Impact equality. Okay. There are two approaches. Okay. Everything starts from somewhere, right? So my academy, it's a microcosm of the universe, right? What happens within the walls of my academy. Okay. I have women, all sizes, shapes, colors, denominations that come. Okay. They're all treated the same. We love them. We share everything we can with them. We empower them. And then we ask them to help out the other women, not just inside the walls of our academy, but beyond the walls. So we've been involved with victims of domestic abuse. We had charities that we participated, that we did fundraising. My wife did an internal tournament that we always pick different charities for veterans, for this and that. And we had quite a few helping out women in different causes and different aspects. Okay. So that's the extent for now of what I've been doing. I have a good friend of mine. We are planning on contributing to his charity about and against sex trafficking. That's another one. So there are other schemes and aspects that may be relevant, but not necessarily related to equality, because I don't think I am qualified maybe to debate on that part, because I don't go so much on the tournament scenario to see what's going on with the women's.
Mhm.
Always see there are way more women doing jiu-jitsu now than before. Okay, I think the quality of training is amazing. In my academy, they're all weaker in my eyes, and we have quite a few females that come. We have moms that bring their kids and they train. We have families. So I feel the structure has to be inviting. The atmosphere has to be honest. We're all there for the same cause, to grow. So there's no dispute here who gets more for whatever reasons. We're all the same, and we're going to get to the degree of our capacity the best we can. So as an instructor, what I say is, if you're an instructor, okay, you have a moral code. Okay, that's the part that I'm really adamant. And I have a moral code, and my instructors have to have a moral code when it comes to women. Okay, for instance, you be an instructor, you're in a position of authority when you're teaching students, and it's not uncommon in some places that instructors, with female students of age consent, I'm not even going to go beyond that.
Yeah.
They might entertain having a relationship with a female student. I think it's a recipe for disaster. If you're an instructor and listen to this, tell your student to go enroll at another academy, then you have a relationship with them. And I understand there are great loves and true relationships that happen on the mat. My wife I met through my father-in-law. I used to teach seminars at his academy, and I got to meet her a few years after that. And eventually we started dating, and today we're married for over 20 years. Okay. I'm not saying that to exclude the possibility, but you got to be adamant about the perspective of, how you do your job and the level of professionalism, and I don't care how old you are, what kind of ideas you have. On the mat, you have one goal: to create and produce confident students. Okay. Confidence comes from competence. Competence comes from knowing that you can do. You repeat the techniques, you build the threshold, you make them spar and be able to execute. So women, I actually feel they are more technical than men, because in some instances, they're not the bigger in the class. They might not have the same strength. So they have no recourse but to really focus on the technicality. And not to say that they don't become conditioned and athletic and can, do amazing sports, which they do. But man, it's an amazing thing, because you have to understand too, Gary. When I started jiu-jitsu, I didn't see any female students training.
Sure.
It was almost like a taboo in Brazil, and today it's everywhere, and for me, I'm so happy to see that. My daughter has done jiu-jitsu. My wife was the first blue belt from Alliance when I first met her, first American female student who was blue belt back then. You know what I'm saying? So it's a journey. I think every woman should do jiu-jitsu, 100%.
With
that martial art.
With that being said, do you think jiu-jitsu will continue growing as time goes on? You talk about, way back in the day, women didn't do jiu-jitsu. Today is by far more of them, and it's obviously there's evolution of the jiu-jitsu. Where do you see jiu-jitsu going? Let's just reach 10 or 20 years from now.
An evolution. Okay. You have the blueprint, you have the core, the fundamentals. They'll never change. They'll always be there. Every solid art has strong fundamentals. Okay. And when you see even guys who apply moves that may not be uncommon, could be uncommon originally, they have strong fundamentals in many aspects. You can't get away from that. Okay. In my opinion. So once you have the foundation, I think it's due to evolve to unforeseeable heights, in my opinion, because mankind, has the genius. When you add the numbers, the critical mass, which jiu-jitsu is reaching, has reached, it's due to have the input of many brains, many of the potential geniuses, a lot of the prodigies. You have a lot of, you have Michael Jordan in basketball, then you have, Kobe Bryant, you have LeBron James, you got to see more, Stephen Curry. So in jiu-jitsu, you're going to see the same thing. And anytime you have talent, and then you have a great talent, like a prodigy, it's like a torch, like a beam of light that illuminates everything else. So it creates an influx of evolution because people start to map out, especially with the way information is diffused. You can see things faster. It happens today, you see right away. You can see live events on your app, So I feel it's a revolutionizing aspect. But like I said, keep in perspective, though, that the fundamentals are key for a strong foundation. And you don't want to be a Frankenstein. The man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror is the real measure of your success.
Love it.
Phenomenal.
Love it.
Let's wrap this up on this strong high note. If anybody wants to reach out to you, where are you available? Websites, social media. If anybody wants to ask you questions, where are you at?
Please like Carlos Machado, the Carlos Machado fan page on Facebook, or go to my Instagram at Carlos Machado Jiu-Jitsu. You want to see some cool videos? Go to machadomethod.com.
That's right.
You want to buy some cool Carlos Machado gear? Go to cmjjgear.com.
There you go.
Love it all. Love it all.
That was awesome. Sir, thank you for being here. Thank you for spending about an hour.
So is this the last of the first? Or, hey, is this the last of the first?
You tell us.
You know what we want.
Huh?
You know what we
tell
want.
us. I mean, I think I would love for this to continue.
Yes.
There's so much we didn't even touch on, and the hour passed by so easily.
All right.
I mean, sometimes this goes.
I'll throw the ball in your court.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, then we're gonna pester you.
Well, we'll definitely reach out again.
Yes.
We would love to have you on, and what a phenomenal time, phenomenal conversation. Thank you for sharing all the knowledge and wisdom and your history with us, Gary.
Yeah, thanks for everything. We never know where these are going to go. This one kind of went. When we talked initially, it's like, okay, we're going to talk more about history and accomplishments and things like that. And we got more into a deeper dive about jiu-jitsu itself.
How deep it was. Yeah.
So maybe on the next one we can change up the topics a little bit.
I love it.
And I think too, Gary, we're not here to talk about ourselves. We're here to talk about the value of the art and the impact it causes on everybody else, and then the stories, that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Just put this way, I'm the oldest of the Machados, and I've been jiu-jitsu for 54 years.
Nice.
54 years.
That right there,
yes,
should suffice.
Beautiful.
54.
I love it.
All right.
Are we done?
Let's wrap this up for today.
You want me to throw the question?
Oh, we'll
Not
do that
yet.
off air.
Off air. Don't say that because we'll do it off air.
Yeah.
Off
Okay,
air.
never mind.
Hold on. Stand by. Let's wrap this up. All right. Thanks for being here. And Gary?
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Thank you so much. Peace.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.
Bye.